if you can't be honest with yourself about your needs and your goals and your processes for how you live your life and how you deal with different situations, it's really hard to love somebody. And it's really hard to be loved by somebody. It's really hard to have that collaborative relationship.
Hello and welcome to the Love Launch podcast. This is Joey Chandler, and this is where I talk to experts and entertainers and athletes about what love means to them, with the idea of how can we all have more of that in our lives. And today I'm super excited to have this conversation because the guest today is someone if you follow TikTok at all, he's known. I just know him as the athlete. The Warrior Philosopher. I think is that right, Tyson?
Yep, that's the
yes.
one.
Yeah, and Tyson LaRone he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor, a Muay Thai instructor, but mostly what he's a man who's just really deliberate in his thoughts. I've seen his posts on TikTok. He's clearly a great dad. He's a mentor. He's a businessman, and he takes the time to think about what he says. He says what he means. He takes responsibility if something doesn't go the right way, but he's just very present in his conversations. And so when I was thinking about, people that would have something interesting to say about love, I thought of him, and he was generous enough to come on. So Tyson, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for asking. It's pretty exciting for me.
Oh, great. Well, before we get into what love means to you, I gave a little bit of an introduction, but tell people a little bit more about what you do and where you are and that sort of thing.
Well, I live in Canada. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. A lot of people on my TikTok think I'm American for some reason. I think it's because I deal with a lot of American subject matter. But I live here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I wear a lot of hats. I originally went to school for massage therapy, but I didn't stay in that industry particularly long. I got it for 2 years. And these days, my full-time job is teaching martial arts. I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. And I teach that to kids starting at 4 years old all the way up to adults. And I also work for a company called the Gatsu, which is the main kind of strength and conditioning education company in Canada. And I run certification courses for coaches, personal trainers, and instructors on topics like kettlebell training and athletic development. So I'm a busy guy. I have a 1-year-old son. That's what my day job is until I leave around 4 o'clock to teach classes every day. And that's been a really interesting experience. And one of the things I've been thinking about most since you asked me, let's talk about what love means. Like, oh, okay, well, I've got a different frame of reference on what love means now for sure. It's been a bit of a whirlwind for the last year.
Absolutely. And is that your first son?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think one of the conversations that I want to have with people is what is the difference between the love that you have, pre-baby, or really pre-change anything before you get married, before you meet someone, before you have children, and after, the difference on that. But given all that you have right now, what does love mean for you right now?
It's tough to find the words, which, that's why you have the podcast, right? Because there's different people who are going to have a different idea of what love is. And it becomes one of those terms that's so ubiquitous in our daily lives that we don't even really think about what it means. It's like, what does oxygen mean? What does gravity mean? It's like we experience its effects, but we never think about the underpinning concepts of it. And for me, I think if I had to choose a word besides love that kind of correlated most positively to love for me, it's connection. How much of a connection I feel with somebody. And you could say you love somebody but not feel a connection with them, and you could feel connected with somebody and not feel like you love them. But I think that's the word that means the same thing that love means, but isn't the word love. I think the connection is a better way to describe how I experience love, because it hasn't always been easy for me to connect with people. I consider myself to be a pretty empathetic person now, but when I was little, that was actually a bit of an issue for me. Outside of my immediate family and animals, always been crazy about animals. But as far as like people outside of my immediate social circle, having empathy for them when I was a little kid was actually kind of a learned skill for me. As I've grown up, and especially since I've become a martial arts instructor, especially for kids, the way that I see my place in the world has shifted so much. And then, meeting my wife, Stephanie, and having our son, again, just shifts that idea of connection. And when you asked me, what part of love do you want to talk about? One of the things that I mentioned was collaborative relationships. And I think connection has a lot to do with that. If you truly connect with somebody, I think that the reason why two people truly connect is because they understand that together they can be more than what they are apart. And so connection and collaboration for me are two terms that are interwoven and unequivocal. I think that if you connect with somebody, then there's something inside you that says, with this person as my friend, as my teacher, as my student, as my parent, as my child, together we're more than we are apart. Yeah,
absolutely. And to be clear, so you said connection and collaboration. So is that sense of working together, is that part of love as well for you?
I think it has to be. When we think about sort of the Hollywood picture of love, which I have to say is in my opinion pretty unhealthy most of the time, because they gotta make it exciting for an hour and a half, right? They're not showing you 30 years of a relationship; they're showing you an hour and a half of a relationship, and usually the only actual real relationship where they have to work on anything is the one that's ending at the beginning of the movie, and then the rest of it is just this sort of idea of, oh, love is grand gestures and sacrifice and dependence, and I can't live without you. And I think that paints a kind of a weird picture of love, because when I think of why my wife and I work together so well, and why perhaps it worked better than any other relationship I've ever had, is because as some people may think this sounds negative, but we didn't need each other for anything besides the connection that we felt. We both liked life better together than we did when we didn't have each other, but we both had our own things going on. And if for whatever reason we split up or went our separate ways, we would have been profoundly saddened by losing that connection that we had and that relationship we had, but we both would have been okay. And because because neither of us feel like we need the relationship in that way, we can enjoy it so much more, because you're never asking that question of, am I with this person because I love them? Am I with this person because I truly feel a connection with them? Or am I with them because of this thing I need them for? Right. And for some people, that is, when I'm with this person, I feel like a better person. When I'm with this person, I feel protected. When I'm with this person, I feel safe to express myself. And those are all things that if the relationship is the only place you're getting that, then it's just constantly calling into question, what am I getting out of this? And if it weren't for this, would I even want to be around this person, let alone be in a long-term relationship with them?
Yeah, there's so much there. I know the other thing to add in there is, like, am I with this person now for who they are now rather than who I think they can be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking on a project essentially. And I'll be honest, my wife and I were getting separated, and I think because we both took on each other as projects, and we will, and we're made, each of us are great, but we have this sense of like, well, if you were just this way, you'd be a little bit better. And that over time got in the way. And I love what you said about how you both had full lives, and and you really enjoy the connection that you have. Like you got everything. And I just imagine it's like this energized connection that brings you joy and happiness and collaboration and all that stuff. And that's what you enjoy in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that when a lot of people experience that in a relationship with an adult, it's different than when they have a child. Like for me, it was different when I had a child, because having a baby is really the ultimate test of, can I have a connection without needing something from a person? Because there's nothing a baby can give you besides love and connection. Right. Like when you have a baby, it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of, just kind of zombie like wading through your day because you got like 3 hours of sleep the other night, or they don't know how to express their needs other than just crying and screaming at first. So it's like I remember the first time our baby smiled at us and like laughed and gave us some positive reinforcement. I realized like, oh my God, like we've just been, that's one of the reasons it's been so hard, because he couldn't positively reinforce us at first. Like when he was first born, our best case scenario with him was apathy. He'd be upset and angry, or he would not be upset and angry. And when he was not upset and angry, that was the best case scenario. That was the best we could hope for. And then the first day he was like, oh, I like this. So I'm smiling and laughing. We were like, oh, this is so much better. Yeah. This is so much better having the smiling and laughing to shoot for now. But yeah, when they're first born, they just take from you. That's what they have to do, because they can't do anything for themselves. So it's kind of the ultimate test of that idea. Like, can I have a relationship where I love somebody without needing anything tangible from them? Because a baby can't give you anything tangible. All you have is just, you look at that baby and you just feel that love and feel that connection. And that's all they can give you for the first few years of their life.
Yeah. Right? Have you, I'm curious. I remember when my son was that age, I started really thinking about how my parents, and really have a new appreciation for my parents. I'm curious if you have gone through anything similar on that.
Yes. Now I was extremely fortunate with my parents. I've discussed these topics in my TikToks before, like the idea of understanding the brain development of young children, and how when they're having an emotional reaction, that they're in sort of what's commonly referred to as an amygdala hijack state, where that part of their brain that deals with logic and calm under pressure and understanding, oh, I'm feeling this emotion and it's making me react this way, and I shouldn't react that way because it's not appropriate for this situation. That part of your brain doesn't develop into your 20s. And but the limbic region that deals with heightened emotion like fear and anger and sadness, that's fully developed right off the bat. So when kids are in that state where they just like they're crying for no reason, and then like they don't even remember why they were crying, all they know is the moment they just left and the moment they're in right now, and they're crying right now, so it must have been a good idea. Right. So this idea of this, okay, I have to be with them in the emotion first, let them know it's okay to feel what they're feeling, get them to model the calm behavior and the state that I want for them, help them get out of that amygdala hijacked state, and then talk to them logically about how we can avoid this situation in the future. My mother and father were doing that intuitively way before any of this sort of had terms put to it, and it was offered as mainstream knowledge. They never read any books on it. They never listened. There weren't podcasts for them to listen to. Like they had none of the resources I have, and yet they did everything, and they did it better than I do. And I'm so glad that I had that, because when I was a little kid and I would go over to friends' houses and their parents didn't have those tools and those skills and that idea of validate what you're feeling first, then talk to you about how to fix it. They had these, frankly, some of them terrible relationships with their parents. It didn't even really register with me. I didn't understand that because I had just always had it so good with my parents. But I was still a teenager, right? And I think it was sometime in my mid-20s, I had that sort of epiphany where I just like, oh, I don't think I've ever had the moral high ground in an argument with my parents in my life. I tried to remember just one time where I was actually right. Couldn't think of one. And I was just like, oh, I just think to some conversations where just like I cringe because like, oh, did I really say that? Did I really think at the time that I was that I had it all figured out, and that my parents were the ones who were wrong about this and they didn't understand? And it's so hard to imagine myself as that person who actually had those thoughts inhabiting them and really thought that, no, my parents are wrong and I'm right. And it's just like, yeah, I think it was sometime in my mid-20s, I was just like, no, yeah. They were right about everything, literally everything.
I think it's great when my son's generally a great kid, but whenever he's doing something, he's lying or doing something stupid and I'm just like, look, we've done all that before. Like, whatever you're gonna lie or cheat about or do, whatever that is, my wife and I, we've done it.
Yeah, and kids are such adorably terrible liars too.
Exactly. I think we all are. I think so in terms of love being about connection and collaboration, which I think is beautiful, I'm curious how that shows up in your work as a jiu-jitsu instructor and a Muay Thai and an athlete in that realm.
Well, one of the ways that it really I find it striking is in the idea of role modeling as a martial arts instructor, because a lot of people come to the martial arts as children, and not all of them are even interested in martial arts. I've discussed this on other podcasts and in my videos at certain points where because the martial arts community has this reputation, well earned or not, for promoting structure and discipline and self-respect and confidence, more so than other activities, people will bring their children to the martial arts, even if their kid has never asked them to be put in a martial art, because they want those things for the children. And they figure just putting them on the mats with a guy wearing a black belt is going to do it for them. It's kind of weird when you think about it, because I can't really think of any other common sport at least, where that would be the case, where it's like, well, I've heard football players are confident. My kid doesn't want anything to do with football, but they're going to go to football and they're going to like it because I want them to be confident. Maybe that happens. I haven't heard of it happening often.
Not often. My son, in Little League, right? There were a few kids that their parents were clearly just like, go play with, but it was more to like play with friends or be with buddies. Yeah, it was not for that a structure or a rigor.
Yeah, and presumably the kids at least had a passing interest in baseball at the time. Or maybe they did. Like you always hear those stories of the kids who like had a passion for the sport to begin with. They lost the passion, but their parents didn't. But there was still that initial spark where it's like they got into football because they liked football. Maybe they lost the love for football, but their parents wanted to keep at it for different reasons. But for the martial arts, this actually happens quite often, where somebody will say, okay, well, my kid is having this particular issue. It's not a martial arts issue. It's a confidence, discipline, self-respect, structure issue. And I've heard that martial arts is good for this. I'm going to put my kid in this. And it's not something I recommend, to be honest. And I'll always do my best. And I've dealt with some kids who had some fairly severe behavioral issues, but that had interest in martial arts. And through the vehicle of teaching the martial arts, their behavioral issues significantly improved. But if you have a kid with severe behavioral issues who also doesn't have an interest in martial arts, I don't actually think it's a great way to try to get them to correct those behavioral issues, to just put them in that setting, hoping that it'll just rub off on them, because it doesn't. Because martial arts has that reputation, the tail sort of wags the dog. Where a lot of martial arts instructors feel like they have to be that harsh disciplinarian because that's what they feel is expected by the students and the parents of the students. So they're actually sort of pitching martial arts that way. Bring your kid to me and I'm going to straighten them out, like those kids on Maury that got sent to military school, right? Like it's sort of a weird idea, because being a role model to me is not just about modeling qualities like strength and stoicism and calm and discipline and self-respect. It is, but it's also about showing your humanity. right? I was thinking about this not too long ago, because I had a student in one of my classes. He was like 7 years old, and he asked me if I'd ever lost a fight before, if I'd ever lost a match. And he was genuinely asking, like, well, have you ever lost? And to me, like, well, of course I've lost. I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, if you've never lost in 20 years, you're training with the wrong people. Like, nobody in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition is undefeated. Nobody, even the legends of the sport are not undefeated. But what it made me think about is, well, that's what he thinks being good at Jiu-Jitsu is. This kid thinks that because I'm good at jiu-jitsu, because I'm a black belt, I've never lost in my life. Now, on the surface of it, that just seems like, oh, that's a cute kid thing to think, but that could be pretty destructive, right? If he thinks that that's the standard, and that if you're good at jiu-jitsu, you just never lose. Well, how is that going to irradiate through his approach to training and his approach to partnering well with other children where we're doing drills that are competitive? What if he goes to a tournament, his first ever tournament, and loses a match and thinks, well, that's it. I can never be good at jiu-jitsu. I lost a match. So it's like, it was a good opportunity for me to talk about how, losing is a part of martial arts, and the greatest gift you could hope for as a martial artist is having training partners that can push you to the point where they can beat you, because that's where you're going to grow the fastest, and that's where you're going to learn the most, and that's where you're going to forge these long-lasting relationships, because you push them, they push you, you both get better. It was a good opportunity to talk about that. But if he hadn't asked that question, maybe I would have presented those concepts in passing. But at that moment, it was really important to talk to him about that. So it made me think about how, a lot of martial arts instructors will actually promote that image of themselves where, well, nobody can ever beat me because I'm the master. And they want their students to think that. But when you actually get down to brass tacks of, okay, how does that affect your students' approach to martial arts? If you're the one they look up to, and you never show weakness, never show vulnerability, never show emotion, and they think that's what you're supposed to be, if you're just a good example of a martial artist, it might be a good example of like a combat athlete or a warrior, but it's not a great example of being a person. And warriors are people too. Combat athletes are people too. Soldiers are people too. And if you never show your humanity as a role model, you're doing just as much as a disservice as if you show like bad behavior, like a lack of respect or a lack of self-control or whatever it is. It's like, you can't just show one aspect of the behavior you want to model for them. You also want to show, yeah, I make mistakes. Yeah, I lose. Yeah, I get new information and change how I teach things. And the reason I do that is because I want to be a better person, and I want to model the best behavior I can for you. And a big part of that is how you deal with failure. Well, if I never even talk about failure because, well, how could I fail? I'm your master. Then I'm actually setting a terrible example for them. It might be a good thing for them to aspire to as far as their combat ability, but as far as the rest of what it means to be a person, I'd be setting a terrible example for them. So the role model relationship that I have with my students, I just have to be conscious. I'd be constantly consciously aware of being a role model, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. They think that it's something you can turn on or turn off. Like, I'm a role model, or, oh no, I'm not a role model. Don't do what I do because I'm not a role model. If you are in a setting where you're around children, you're a role model. There's no turning it on or off. They're like little computers. They just absorb the information you give them, good and bad. So there's no do as I say, not as I do, because what you do is what they're actually watching all the time. They sort of listen, but they always watch. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've thought about when it comes to connection and collaboration in my daily work is for the students that are 4 years old and the students that are older than me. The whole spectrum of different people with different kinds of experiences and different things that they're bringing to the martial arts. I'm just constantly aware of what kind of role model I'm being at any given time, because I want I want the lasting effect that I have on each person who walks into my dojo, however long they train with me, to be a positive one. And it's kind of exhausting trying to be conscious of that all the time, and not just being like, oh, I don't feel like teaching today, so I'm, all my students are going to be able to tell that I don't want to be here right now. No.
I was going to ask you that, because I think the idea is amazing, right? To be a role model all the time, but like you said, it's also exhausting. And I'm curious, what do you do to take care of yourself so that you can maintain that over time?
Well, first of all, I spend time alone and silent. That's a big thing for me. It's like I'm very introverted by nature. And I'm sure that would surprise a lot of people that I deal with on a daily basis, because I can fake being an extrovert for a short period of time to go and teach my classes. And all the kids would know me as really energetic and upbeat and engaging and all that, because that's what I want to be for them. But I gotta tell you, like I've had jobs where I'd work night shifts and work 12 to 16 hours picking boxes in a warehouse, and like none of those 16-hour warehouse shifts that I did in college ever wore me out as much as teaching classes for 4 hours. And it's not because I'm doing anything particularly physically demanding. I'm just teaching. I got to demonstrate techniques and stuff like that, but it's not physically difficult for me to teach. But it's, just being as engaged as I possibly can be, and being as present with each individual student as I possibly can be, watching for body language, trying to maintain a higher level of emotional intelligence for 4 hours is just, it's really, really exhausting. And I think a lot of times if you don't have that in mind, if you don't think about that, what ends up happening is you start the day with your 4-year-old students and you're awesome with them, but then slowly over the course of the night, you start phoning it in a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and your adults just get a garbage class. Right. So just making sure that, before each class, I take a breath and I just say to myself, okay, this is a brand new group of students. This is the first time they're seeing me today. It's not my first time teaching a class today, but it's their first time taking a class today. They have to get the same quality class as everybody else. So I've got like a little instructor change room, which used to be a closet. That's my change room. And I just, before each class, like I make sure that, the little kids got their sticker at the end of class, and I've said hi to the people coming in and stuff like that. But then I just go into my change room and I just take some breaths. Okay. I tell myself, okay, this next class is going to be the best class I've ever taught. Some days it's easier. Some days it's easier than others, but it starts with just being aware of it. It starts with just being conscious of it and saying, I'm not going to work for a 4-hour shift.
One question I have is, what are you doing now that you have a kid and you're coming home? Because obviously you want to deliver your best class to, I think you said your wife's name is Stephanie, and to your child. And we all know what it's like to come home and not deliver our very best.
Well, thankfully, our situation now is pretty much the best we could hope for. I don't start my work technically until I leave at about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon to go to my dojo, because my classes run from 5 o'clock until about 9 o'clock at night. So I'm, my son's name is Theo. I'm Theo's kind of main active parent from when he wakes up in the morning around 7:45-ish until I leave for work. And then that's when my wife Stephanie gets off work, is around 3 o'clock. And then when I leave, she takes over. So I kind of have him for the morning and she kind of has him for the evening. And that it works out well for Theo, because no matter how tired we are and how frustrated we are, maybe the previous night didn't go so well, like he had gas or whatever it is. Even if I'm barely, even if I can barely make it in the morning, I can still be a good parent from 8 to 3 and just, she's had a rough day at work, she could still handle it from 3 to 9 when he goes to bed. So we're both actively engaged in his life, and we love that. We're very thankful for that, because a lot of people aren't in that position. They both have to work full time. So the kid is at daycare with strangers, and there's nothing you can do about it. Somebody's got to take care of him. But Steph and I are very fortunate to have that situation where she's working from home, so she's still around while he's with me in the morning and the early afternoon. And then when I get home, she's usually either just about to put him to bed or just putting him to bed. So when I get home and I go upstairs, if he's still awake, it's like, okay, he gets 20 or 30 minutes of the best dad I can be before he goes to bed. So usually if I'm lucky, I get home just in time to handle his kind of bedtime routine. And if he wakes up during the night, usually, unless he needs to feed or something like that, usually during the night, if he just needs comfort, I go out of my way to kind of go and do that. So, after he goes to bed, I don't just disappear until he wakes up in the morning. But it's definitely not easy. I honestly have no idea how people with more than one child do it. I don't know how they get anything done. Yeah. Because I have more, because I don't work until the late afternoon now, I have more spare time than most people I know, and I only have the one child, and all my spare time is gone. So I know people who have 3 or 4 kids, and they're still managing to get things done and shop for groceries and have some time for themselves. And I'm just I have no idea how anybody does it.
Absolutely.
I think my wife and I are pretty much one and done. Everybody tells us, oh, once he's 4, you're going to change your mind. But I think we're one and done. We've got Theo. That's enough.
Exactly. Well, the thing that I hear over and over again, you saying is connection, but it's also connecting with yourself.
Yeah.
And I hear you connecting with that child, getting in his world, that fear of what if I'm going to lose, right? And can I be good if I'm going to lose? Because I know I'm going to lose, and then connecting with your wife and your son and yourself to be able to come up with practices to be able to keep that love going.
Yeah. And I think that is a crucial element of how I define love now in my own life. Is if you can't be honest with yourself about your needs and your goals and your processes for how you live your life and how you deal with different situations, it's really hard to love somebody. And it's really hard to be loved by somebody. It's really hard to have that collaborative relationship. A good example is I love to debate. I've always loved to debate since I was a little kid, and my mother was a teacher. So as soon as I could read, she had me reading a page of the dictionary and a page of the encyclopedia to her every night. So I developed a love of language very early on in my life, and especially once I got into high school and debate as a concept became a thing for me. I always loved that idea of how could I craft an argument for something that I don't even believe in? Because in debate, one of the most important exercises is how to take a position that you don't even believe in, that's not your actual position, but still defend it against somebody. I was always fascinated by that. But because I love to argue, and because I love to debate, and because I love to be right, that's something I can be really honest with myself about. Because sometimes my wife and I'll be disagreeing about something, and I have to make a switch somewhere in the conversation. It's starting to get more heated and starting to get more intense, and it's starting to feel more like an argument and less as a discussion. I have to be really honest with myself and say, what are my goals here? Is my goal to figure out a solution to the problem that my wife and I are facing? Or is my goal right now to win this argument? Because I love to win arguments, I hate to be wrong, but the goal of winning the argument against my wife is not the same as the goal of both of us figuring out how we're going to solve this problem that we're both facing. So that idea of it's not me against her, it's us against the problem. And you have to, and if you can't be honest with yourself about what are my goals in this situation, well, of course you're going to argue, and of course nothing is ever going to get solved because you weren't even trying to solve a problem. You were just trying not to be wrong. And if you can't be honest with yourself, then you can't. You're very rarely going to actually solve problems together. So you stop arguing, but nothing got solved. So the argument is inevitably going to happen again, because if the problem doesn't get solved, you have to keep on talking about it. But you sort of, one person wins the argument, so they're like not at fault for the problem, but nothing actually got dealt with. So I think it has to start with being honest with yourself about where you can go wrong, like where your tripping points are. The ways that you can be a better person. For me, that's a big one. Trying to make sure that I'm not trying to win. We are trying to collaboratively solve this problem. It's us versus the problem. It's not me versus her, because who's to blame for the problem is not as important as solving the problem, right? And that's something that we're both trying to be really conscious of, because we want Theo to have that understanding as well. Right. When he grows up, he's going to start to push boundaries. He's going to start to get into trouble. And I think one of the most important things that we can impart on him when he starts to push those boundaries and get into trouble is to say to him, look, the problem we're trying to solve is not who's at fault. It's not if you're a good or a bad kid. It's about this behavior is problematic because. And we understand what you're feeling. We're not trying to tell you you're wrong for feeling what you're feeling, but we are trying to explain why this behavior is problematic and why it may not be as effective as you think it is for getting your needs met in this situation, right? If you can't do that yourself, then how are you going to pass that on to a kid? And then if people think about it as, well, it's me versus the kid, they're lying, so I have to make sure that I catch them in the lie, or they're behaving badly, so I have to make sure that they know that, oh, you're a bad kid when you do this, and you're a good kid when you do this, and I love you when you're good, and I don't love you when you're bad. Like, that's the message people get. That's the message that kids get. Is when they only see you showing your humanity to them and showing that connection, saying, we love you so much and we're so proud of you and we're so happy we have you. If they only see that when they are a good kid, they don't get the message that, oh, I'm separate from my behavior. They think that I only get love when I do what you want me to do. And that's in my opinion, it can be a really unhealthy thing for a kid to learn and internalize, right? Because I want Theo to know that when he behaves poorly, that doesn't make him a bad kid, right? And part of that is the empathy, right? It's like, man, I don't want people to think I'm a bad person when I behave poorly, because we all behave poorly. None of us could be considered good people if we were always judged as people for our individual acts at any given time. So just that idea of being honest with yourself and connecting with yourself so that you can connect with others, because I don't think it's possible otherwise.
No, I think it's something I'm learning out of having these conversations. What does love mean to you? Because it's forcing me to define my own, which is allowing me to honestly use it in different ways in my life and explore it in different ways and see where I'm falling way short and see where I'm doing okay at it and all those sorts of things. And I do think. And the other thing, because you talk about, am I trying to win this argument? Because sometimes you want to check in with your spouse, right? Because maybe they're just trying to win the argument. Maybe they're just trying to win the argument. They actually, we like to think that oftentimes against men, women, like the women are trying to figure it out and guys are just being, argumentative, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But for, sometimes people just want to complain. Like that's, and that's a legitimate sometimes sort of thing.
Man.
And I know I've gotten better at just saying, hey, what do you want me to do here? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to, advise? Like, what do you want? And the vast majority of times just listen, which is really hard.
I'm right there with you. I have that same problem where I've had the exact same conversation where I hit that turning point where I was like, should I just ask you, like, if you want me to try to help to fix this problem? Or do you just want me to listen? Because there's sometimes where I think like I'm just supposed to be listening. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I'm gonna engage. I'm gonna make her understand that I'm listening right now. I'm gonna make her understand that yes, I'm interested. I'm trying to put myself in your position. I'm trying to understand why this is important to you. But then like I haven't said anything for like 25 minutes. And then it becomes a thing. It's like, well, you don't even care. You're just waiting until I'm done so we can go back to watching Netflix. Like, no, I thought I was listening. I thought I was doing the right thing. But trying to pinpoint when she wants me to help work toward a solution and be active in that conversation or just listen. Being able to just ask, what is it that you need from me right now? It's such a weird thing to like do at first and get used to, because you have I think we internalize this idea that, oh, if I don't know what I'm supposed to do, then that's an even bigger problem. So I'm just gonna pick one and go with it. Like those pro soccer players that can't react fast enough. The ball's going this way, they jump this way.
You're the goalie. Yeah, I think there's a lot, and a lot of people, and sometimes people aren't used to being asked.
Yeah.
Like if you ask them like, hey, what do you want? They're like, I actually don't know what I want. And so I think, and again,
let's have that conversation first then.
Right. And I think it's, but I envision it like all this takes practice. And I'm sure, obviously in martial arts, you have to practice a basic routine over and over and over again to develop some mastery of it.
Yeah.
And I think talking about what love is to each of us and how that shows up and where that works is something that we could practice more and just have conversations like these. For
sure. Yeah. Becoming a great martial artist, like becoming great at anything, I think is to borrow a phrase from the head of Agatsu of Sean Mosen, you have to become a master of monotony. You have to understand that 90% of the time you spend getting good at something is not going to be all that exciting. It's not going to be big moments. It's going to be a lot of small moments that add up. And going back to the Hollywood idea of love, where it's all grand gestures and sacrifice, and it's just a huge event and impactful, dramatic conversation after another. Like nobody talks to each other like that. Like it's you'll have those moments in life, but like the Hollywood love moments, like the grand gesture and the grand sacrifice, like you could be married for 30 years and have 3 of those, right? Most of your time is going to be just like, okay, I'm folding laundry, she's working, Theo's playing with his toys. Am I enjoying this moment? Is this life better than the life I would have if I didn't have this? And the answer is always yes, right? It's not like you have to. Actively enjoy every single second of it, but I'm living my life. She's living her life. He's living his life, and there's never a moment where I think, yeah, I'd be better off without them, or she'd be better off without me, or he'd be better off without either of us, right? We'd be okay. But we want this in our lives because we know that we are better with it than without it. And it's not because we need anything tangible from each other. We're not dependent on each other for certain needs where I could get it somewhere else. And if I could get it somewhere else, would I still be interested in this? Like, no, what we want from each other is to continue living this beautiful life that we have together. And what we need is sort of interwoven with that. Need is a weird word when it comes to relationships. If somebody says, I need this person, like, okay, well, why? What is it that you need from that person? Because I know what my baby needs from us. Like, what do we need from the baby? Well, we love having the baby in our lives. We love the connection we have with him. We're excited to be his parents. We are excited to watch him grow and watch him develop, and try to make the world a better place because he's in it. But he's not going to write a check for us, right? So if your relationships with adults are purely transactional that way, well, what happens when you have a kid and the kid can give you nothing, right?
Yeah. There's so much there. There's a longtime researcher. His name is Arthur Aaron, and he came up with these ideas, 36 questions, and you can look it up. It's actually really fascinating. These questions that help create connection, and that's. But one thing that he does say is that you want to add in some novelty, some excitement into a relationship. So just and again, to me, it's about creating the environment where you're at your very best. And for some people, having a little excitement, I think adventure is a really good thing. Maybe for other people, it's not. But again, it's connecting with what really works for you.
Yeah, and understanding that it's not necessarily about like finding the right partner is not necessarily about finding a better person or a worse person, but about a person who's better for you. Right. Because my wife kind of went through the normal sort of developmental phase of, being in college and, liking to go to bars and clubs and go drinking and all that kind of stuff. I never went through that. I've never been drunk in my life. I don't drink alcohol at all. I've never smoked. I've never done drugs. I've never done anything like that. And it's not like a discipline thing. I was busy doing other things at that kind of early teenage phase where normally you're introduced to those type of things. And now it's just this late in my life, I don't feel like I want to go out of my way to start liking alcohol. So it's just one of those things where our lives were very different at that certain pivotal developmental phase. But when my wife met me, she was just at the point where she was starting to feel like she wanted to get to transition from that life to a different one, where she was, working out more and hiking more and going to yoga classes and, figuring out how to cook better for herself and all that kind of stuff. And she was becoming less and less and less interested in the going out and getting drunk thing. Well, if she had decided that she wanted to keep going out with her friends and keep on going to dance clubs and keep on going to bars and keep on drinking alcohol, none of that is bad. But if she had kept on doing that, and that's what she continued choosing to do, her and I, despite both being, I would say, good people and having a lot to offer in a relationship, we wouldn't have had a lot to offer each other, because our needs and our ambitions and our ways of spending time, ways that we like to spend time, would have just been constantly conflicting. Whereas, we kind of met each other at the perfect time, where the kind of life that I've just kind of always led as an adult is the sort of life she was just transitioning towards. So it was a big relief for her. She was like, "Oh, I'm so happy that you don't want to go out drinking right now. I'm so happy that you're when we go to Lake Louise, you actually want to go on a hike with me." Like she was just transitioning into that kind of life, and she found me at just the right time, and we found each other at just the right time, where we're both good. We both have something to offer in a relationship. But if I had met her maybe a year earlier, maybe we wouldn't have gotten together at all. Right. And it's not because she would have been any worse or I would have been any better, right? Because it's not better or worse. It's just different. It's just different kinds of compatibility. And this is in every aspect of life. I mean, there's even in martial arts, like there's a lot of students that they start training with me, and it's not because they're bad students or that I'm a bad instructor, but they just don't respond to the way I run classes. And they go to another dojo and they respond better to that teaching style, and they respond better to those training partners. It's not better or worse. I'm not going to take it personally. They're just, that student was better for that instructor. Right. And I think it's really important in relationships to understand that if you want to connect and you want to collaborate, it starts with just understanding that I'm an 8 and they're a 6, so we shouldn't get together. Well, what does that even mean? There's so many different dimensions of what makes up a person that you can't put a number on it. You can't say, oh, this person's a catch and this person isn't because this. Well, there's a person out there who's probably perfect for them. That's what they're looking for. And I think it takes a lot of the pressure off when you start thinking of it that way. It's like, it didn't work out with this person. Maybe there's certain things that I could have done better in that relationship, and maybe I should just be objectively better. Maybe this is something I should correct no matter what. But then there's other things where it's like, well, I didn't connect with that person because of this, and I don't really want to change that. It's a part of who I am. I don't think it's a bad thing. It just didn't work with them.
Yeah, I look at it as like you're playing. You may be playing different games.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You're playing. You know, you got jiu-jitsu on one side and you got football on the other. You know, you're doing just different things, and you want to get aligned. Well, man, we could go on for this for forever. This is so good. There's so many things, but I always end with just a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite book, movie, song that gets the love or the romance going for you?
You know, since we started talking, I've been trying to think about that, and I'm sort of blanking. There is one thing that I don't think this necessarily has anything to do with romance, but it's one of my favorite things to read. It's an article by a gentleman. I think his real name is Jason Pargan, but his pen name is David Long, and he wrote an article called 6 Harsh Truths That Will Make You a Better Person. And that's something I recommend everybody reads. Part of it is about relationships. I'll give you an example. There's one exercise that he recommends in the book for kind of analyzing your kind of path of development and what you offer to people. And it said you name 5 things that are impressive about you or good about you, but it can't be anything you are, only things you've done. It's like you can't make one of your 5 things like I'm nice. It's like, okay, well, you're not. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't count. What have you done that means you're nice? Right?
Yeah.
I'm charitable. I'm strong. I'm lovable. I'm generous. It's like, okay, well, you say you're generous. What have you done that shows generosity?
Well, you could take that and go like, what have you done this week?
Oh yeah.
You know, like you could tighten that timeline down and make that really interesting. That's great. I will get the link from you and we'll put in the show notes. Cool. That sounds like a great article.
No, I love it. I've read that so many times and referenced it so many times that my wife started calling it the Gospel of Tyson.
And is there somebody that, if we could have this conversation about what love means to them, who would you love to have that conversation with?
What love means to them. I would love to have that conversation with, geez, so many good potential ones. I would love to have that conversation with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
He's awesome.
I haven't been a pro wrestling fan since I was like 9 years old. I saw my first MMA fight when I was 9 years old, and the person I was watching it with explained to me that pro wrestling isn't real and this is real. And after that, I couldn't watch pro wrestling anymore. But so I never actually watched him as a pro wrestler. But he just seems like one of those people that just. He's a shining beacon for how good a human somebody can be. Mm-hmm. You know, just like there has to be a flaw in this person. He can't just be an amazing businessman, an amazing athlete, an amazing entrepreneur. He's got to be like a terrible father, right? No, he's an amazing father. Okay,
right.
Like he seems like the kind of person where. It doesn't matter who you are or what kind of person you are or why you happen to be in his sort of social circle. It seems like he just lifts everybody up around him. So it's like, it's not even like, oh, I love him because I admire his acting or I admire his work as a pro wrestler. I admire it's like just it's like what I was talking about before with the, things you are and things you do. Well, everything you say that Dwayne Johnson is, you could easily point to a bunch of things he's done that just display that quality. Yeah. He doesn't have anything to prove to anybody. It's just off the top of my head, one person I think would be really interesting to talk to.
I think that would be great. And man, if anybody's listening to this has a connection with Dwayne "The Rock," please let him know. We'd love to have him on the show. let's see, before we get to the last question, how, if people want to just connect with you, learn more, listen to some of your words, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, if like I say, I wear a few hats. If somebody wants to connect with me on if they're interested in like the strength and conditioning side of things that I'm involved in, if they are interested in taking some of my courses or something like that for strength and conditioning, my Instagram handle is Agatsu West. So Agatsu Fitness is the overarching company that I run. Agatsu West, so it's AGATSU West on Instagram. My dojo Instagram is St. Albert Arashido, so it's St. Albert ARASHIDO. And that's the Instagram for my dojo. On TikTok, I'm the Warrior Philosopher, all one word. And my TikTok kind of got weird at one point. It started out as pretty streamlined, like just weightlifting videos and jiu-jitsu stuff, and then not too long ago, I made a video on the 1988 Anti-Drug Abuse Act. It's just it became a much more general outlet for me to just share my thoughts, because I think about so many things all the time, and it's just like, I found an audience on TikTok for just a lot of the random thoughts and perspectives that I have, and I'm very thankful for it. It's not because it's making me any money. I'm Canadian, so we can't monetize TikTok anyway. But it's nice to have found an outlet for that. So it used to be Tyson Smash, and I changed it to the Warrior Philosopher because it just seemed like it better encompassed what my TikTok has become. And I'm also a big Miyamoto Musashi fan, and so the idea of the Warrior Philosopher, as we now understand, it sort of started with him. So that's sort of that's what I'm all about on TikTok. If you're interested in getting random doses of strength and conditioning, martial arts, and tackling some pretty heavy sociological problems and political issues, then that my TikTok might be for you.
Yeah. No, I follow you on TikTok. I think it's always, like I said, it's always very thoughtful. It's random in all sorts of different ways, but some stuff I don't even understand, but I get it's thoughtful. So definitely anyone that is interested in that, please check them out. And so the last question that I always end with is, and the idea of here is I want people thinking about, what does love mean to me? And so I'm curious, out of this conversation, what are you taking away that you're going to think is going to help what love means to you in your love life?
Well, it's been a very cool conversation, and when you first asked me to be on the podcast, my first thought was, have I ever actually thought about defining love for myself? And as simplistic as that sounds, that's probably my biggest takeaway, is that having been involved with this project and having thought about it, it's like, if I were to tell somebody what love means to me, I'm not sure I've ever actually done that. I might have sort of done it under the pretense of other subjects that I was talking about with somebody. I've definitely talked about connection and collaboration before, but I never actually thought about it under the guise of, okay, what does love mean to me? What other words could describe how I experience love that are just the word love? Because it's like you said, it's one of those terms that's so ubiquitous and it means so many different things to so many different people. It kind of means nothing at this point, right? Love is such an individual experience. So just the opportunity to think about it and try to figure out how to articulate what love means to me was a very interesting thought exercise. It's something I hadn't actually done before, I don't think.
Yeah, I find that's the thing that I find so interesting about this. And the thing that I'm going to take away is, do I have examples of what I say I am? Like, do I have examples if I say I'm about, because courage is one thing that I say love is about, like, having the courage to say who you are and all of that. Do I have examples of courage? Do I have examples of contribution? Because that's another one of my aspects of love. And I think that's a really good kind of measuring stick. Like, can I look at my life and say, you know what, they may not know what I mean, or, they may not know my exact words, but when I tell them, they're like, oh yeah, I can see that you living that. I think that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Tyson, thank you so very much. I really great. This went on much longer than I expected, but it's been wonderful in so many different ways. Thank you. Any last words for people?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. I'm glad the timing worked out. I put my son down for a nap with like a second to spare before jumping on here. So yeah, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for having me. It's a really interesting experience being on a podcast. Not something I ever thought I would do, but since my TikTok started getting more popular, I started doing it more often. It's so cool to get a chance to talk to different people and possibly reach a few people, and maybe something I said can have a positive effect on somebody's life. And that's what we're all trying to do here. I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing our best. And to everyone, thank you so much for listening. We can't do this without you. So please like and share. If you know anybody who is maybe struggling with love, they want to have more love in their life, let them know about this podcast, because what I'm finding is just knowing that you can talk about what love means to you and how you could have more of it for yourself and how you can help other people. I'm finding that exercise in and of itself can lead somewhere and just gives some people a foundation to take some steps, move forward, to create the love that they want to have in their life. And that's my goal. So I want to thank you, and we'll talk to you next time on the Love Launch podcast. Bye.